Hey everybody, Mike Toy Bonsai Boise. So I'm working on my juniper today. Here's a look at it. Juniper's gone wild. This thing has grown out a lot, in all directions too. So I'll give you a quick history on it, show you kind of where it came from and how it's evolved, and then we'll dive in. So I first got it back in fall of 2017. It was just this little guy. I got it at a nursery and I potted it up, put some moss on there. Really small. Here it is a couple years later. And then a couple years after that, it started to really take off and I decided to go with this cascade look. It had really grown a lot then. And here it is as of last summer. It was just way out of control. So I pruned it way back, took the nose back, wired it up, tried to give that cascading branch some movement. And here it is this past spring. I noticed it was not really draining well. And this was right in the middle of getting ready to move, so this was kind of a quick and dirty job. It wasn't exactly a setting up a camera kind of thing. You can kind of see here, look at the dry soil versus the wet soil. That's a pretty good indication that there's a problem. I remember that I had thoroughly watered it too. So for it to be bone dry and part of it, it's not good. So I just decided to repot it, trim off the bottom 2/3 or 3/4 of the roots. It's in there now. Put some good bonsai soil in there and pot it back up. And then here it is as of now. So it took to the new soil and the repotting pretty well. I told myself this time I was not going to let it get way out of shape. And what did I do? I let it get way out of shape. It sort of lost its way as well as far as style goes. I guess a little backstory on how it got this style in the first place was I didn't really know what to do with it. It was the first juniper I'd ever bought or had. And to this day, it's one of like 3 or 4. I don't have a ton of them like I do ficus or maples or elms. So I'm no expert on junipers by any means. The style that I went with initially and that I kind of rolled with was, I don't even know what it's called. I basically let one side, I'm going to call it the back side, grow out in kind of a rounded form. And then the front side just clean shaven, like almost like right down the middle from left to right. And then this cascading look. The problem with this cascade the past couple of years is that it sort of just went long and straight. So it's not very interesting. It needs some movement in there. I've wired it up a few times and it just bounced right back every time. So still debating on what to do with that. For now, I'm just taking a cautious approach, which is why I'm putting this in sort of fast forward motion here because I hadn't decided what to do. So I'm in reality going pretty slow and just kind of nipping around at it, getting rid of some branches that are growing downwards and backwards and upside down. Back there you can see there's a ton of growth that's going straight down. Some of it's actually touching the soil. So starting with some obvious cleanup type stuff like that, and then just sort of nipping at it. And I don't have a solid plan, honestly, as far as style goes. I'm roughly going with the style that I had been going with, but open to some new things. If something else kind of jumps out at me like, hey, let's go this direction, I'm open to it. I know some people don't advise doing that. And in some cases, I don't advise doing it. But in other cases, I do. In this particular case, what's the worst that can happen? The worst that can happen is I'll give it a style that I really don't like, and then I just have to let it grow out again and restyle it to something else. That's the worst case scenario. Here's a look from underneath, just to give you a few different angles. There's a lot of growth coming out of the same spots too, which I'm going to try and deal with. Reverse taper is not a huge issue with juniper, but it can be. I wouldn't say it can't happen, it can. So as I'm nipping away at it, the thing I'm being careful of that I've learned from the past is you have to be real careful to figure out where the branches are coming from, because on junipers it can look like they're coming from one spot and it's actually coming from somewhere else. It's pretty dense in there and kind of confusing and hard to see what's going on. A few fun facts about these. They are pretty drought tolerant in my experience. Slowing it down just to kind of give you a look at the style that's starting to evolve and develop here. So they are drought tolerant. The one downside to them is they don't give you a lot of warning when something is going wrong. So, in other words, let's say you think it's more drought tolerant than it actually is and you don't water it enough. It doesn't give you warning signs like, say, a maple. A maple, you'll see its leaves start to get sad and droopy and maybe even crispy. And you go, oh, okay, and you can just water it and maybe those leaves will die, but new ones right behind it will sprout. Junipers don't do that. They just start turning yellow and brown. And once you see that yellow and brown, it's pretty much too late. There's a real short window where maybe some of it will turn yellow and brown, but not all of it. And you might have caught it just in time. But once it turns yellow and brown, those branches are pretty much goners. I should say that foliage that is yellow and brown is a goner. There's exceptions to every rule, of course, but that's what I've learned. Also, you cannot and should not ever try to grow these indoors for whatever reason. I don't know what kind of magic science the tree has to know that it's indoors, but it somehow knows. I think it's an air and light thing, but even under grow lights, even really strong grow lights, still won't do the trick. It'll die. In every experience that I've had, every experience that I've seen others have, and everything I've ever heard about it will confirm 10 out of 10 times they will die if kept indoors long term. So you might see a style starting to evolve here. And it just sort of happened kind of accidentally, and I'm just rolling with it. Kind of a pad system is happening. Now, what to do about this cascading nose? I keep wiring it. It doesn't take. So I'm going to get drastic. Off with its nose. And we're going to start over on that cascade. Also, I wanted it to taper a little more than it was. It was long, straight, and the exact same thickness as the trunk. Pretty boring. So there's the beginning of the new cascade. You can kind of see the nose of the cascade going down, a little bit of taper now, especially after I smooth it out. And now that I can kind of see a vision for some of these pads to develop, I'm just sort of rolling with that. Still subject to change, but that's what is kind of jumping out to me at this point. Hopefully you can start to see the style developing here. A couple other fun facts. These Juniper procumbens are, they like to spread outward and grow outward. They will grow up, but they grow up, down, left, right. They're not like a tree that only wants to grow straight up. So that's kind of nice. It lends itself well to bonsai. The foliage is kind of needle-like as well. It'll kind of stab at you, especially once it's dead. So as you're getting some of that dead growth out of there, it'll kind of stab you in the finger. At this stage now, I'm just sort of cleaning it up. Getting rid of growth that is popping out in the elbow of branches. There's lots of that. It loves to do that. Yeah, it looks. I think it's got potential to look good. I don't know if I'll even keep all the pads, or if I'll keep it as, this pad situation at all, long term. I don't know. I'm gonna go with it for now. Let me know what you think. Leave me some comments about maybe some directions you would have gone. I'm always curious to hear others' opinions. Sometimes people point things. Actually, I should say a lot of time people will point things out that seem so obvious to me after I hear it. And for whatever reason, I just didn't see it at the time. So I always love hearing different opinions and perspectives and directions people would go. So I'd love to hear it. Now I'm just cleaning up all the little nubs that were left over. I may at some point have to get rid of that cascade nose altogether because it's still pretty thick. It's like the same thickness as the trunk. But that day is not today. Today, we're going pad style. So here's kind of the finished product. Finished for now, that is. Like I said, leave me some comments. Let me know your thoughts, opinions, perspectives. Please like and subscribe. And thanks for watching. Have a good rest of your day, everybody.